School lunch challenge, day 5. We're going to go ahead and make a meat and cheese breakfast strata. And what we've been given for our lunch today was some milk, raisins, a sandwich with meat and cheese, and then some celery sticks. So we're going to go ahead and put our raisins aside. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our celery because we have a clean, dry cutting board that's secure to the table. And we're going to use our celery and cut it up into pieces. Now, sometimes when celery gets cut and it's sat a while, depending on how long it takes for you to do this, you may notice a little bit of dryness at the ends. We do want to cut those off. I'm going to use a paring knife today. If you're comfortable with a chef's knife, you can use a chef's knife. If you need an adult to cut this into smaller pieces, please do that. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to trim, making sure I'm mindful of my hands, that my fingers are not in the way of the knife blade. Because these are larger pieces, I'm only going to take one at a time. And again, I'm going to trim. Now, determine on how much you like. If you like a lot of celery, you can use 2 of these sticks. But this is quite a bit for just one serving. I do like celery. I'm going to go for the greenest of the 2. And I'm going to go ahead and use those pieces for celery. And that's going to add some flavor into my breakfast strata. So this is a little bit too large. I'm going to go ahead and cut it down. So trimming that other edge. I'm going to just take my paring knife very carefully and securely, drawing it down to make nice narrow strips. If you have a chef's knife and you're practicing your knife skills, definitely use your chef's knife so that way it makes it easier to cut those strips with less risk of snagging and getting in your way. But a nice small paring knife, some people are more comfortable using that. Some parents are more comfortable letting their kids in the kitchen with that paring knife. So here, I don't really like how that one edge looks, so I'm just gonna discard that. And that does happen sometimes. School lunch, they're prepping a lot of items, so they can't always see every little imperfection that you might have. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just cut it into a small dice. So I've made my pieces smaller, and using my paring knife, just very carefully go across, keeping that claw, moving the celery up as I go, staying on my cutting board. So you don't wanna work on the end of your cutting board. And try to get your pieces as even as possible. Now with this, we're gonna go ahead and take 1 tablespoon of butter that I've pre-measured, and we're gonna put it into a mug and put it in the microwave to soften or sweat, because these are quite hard right now, the celery for 30 seconds. All right. So for 30 seconds, I put the mug with the butter and the celery in the microwave, and it is nice and hot, and the celery is translucent. Okay, so you want it to be able to see through it. Nice and bright, the color has kind of come forward. And then we're gonna go ahead and make our custard mixture. So with our school milk, we're gonna add in the milk before the egg. We are using an egg today because the butter is still quite warm and we don't want the egg to curdle at all. So we're gonna add in 3 tablespoons of milk. To 1 egg. I'm just gonna stir that around, get the butter mixed into the milk. And then I'm gonna take an egg, crack it, and whisk my egg up to break it apart. And make a nice custard mixture. So to this, we also want to add some salt and pepper. So that now that everything is whisked together, I'm going to add in a little pinch of salt. Okay, a pinch, just a little tiny bit between my fingers. Placing that in, we don't want it too salty. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start with my bread. So I'm gonna set my mug aside and take all the items from my sandwich. So if you had a parent cut up the celery for you, Okay, this looks like some ham, which is great for breakfast, but also great for lunch. Some cheese slices, and then we have our bread. So some ham and cheese, and we're gonna go ahead and just cut that up, or have a parent cut it up for you, tear it. Same thing, just into small little strips. Okay, starting on a julienne right here. Nice matchstick size strips. And then we go ahead and we can cut those even further. So just taking those pieces, a little bit at a time so you're not working with too large of a quantity, and just go ahead and recut them into smaller pieces. Pull it together, cut it into smaller pieces. So in my liquid mixture, I'm gonna go ahead and place all of my ham and cheese. And then I'm gonna go ahead and either you can tear apart the bread just into little pieces, like we did for the pretzel pudding, okay, making it small, bite-sized pieces. Or you can use your knife again if you're practicing knife skills, and go ahead and chop that up as well, okay? You can do this with regular sandwich bread. I personally would remove the crust off of the sandwich bread. So I've got about half of my sandwich in there, and I'm just gonna cover that with the milk. Okay, just so that I'm not trying to mix too much in at one time, but I'm gonna use the whole sandwich. So from here, I'm gonna go ahead and just keep breaking it into smaller pieces. Make sure that your mug is a good size to fit all of your mixture so that it doesn't bubble out, and make sure that it is microwavable safe. So we're trying to do all of these so that if you come home after school with your school lunch, you haven't eaten it, you didn't like what it looked like, you can come home and go ahead and throw this together as a snack, a late lunch, maybe into breakfast. I would definitely eat this for breakfast. Okay, that little extra celery in there is gonna give us our veggie, kind of a stuffing-like quality. And we're gonna allow this to soak in our mug for 1 minute. So this will soak in the mug, the bread will absorb it. Because the bread is fresh today, it's not gonna take very long, but if you're using stale bread or bread that you were gonna throw away, instead of doing that, put it in a custard mixture, which is our 1 egg, our 3 tablespoons of milk, and ultimately our tablespoon of butter was in there as well to give it some body, especially for the 1% milk. So we're gonna let this sit for a minute, and then we're gonna put it into the microwave for 2 minutes, check it to see if the egg is set. We wanna make sure that the egg is cooked through completely. So that was 2 minutes. Our egg is nicely cooked. Our custard and our bread mixture. Okay. It smells of ham and cheese. We've got a little bit of celery in there to give it a little texture and interest. And our bread cubes. Great breakfast, great lunch, any time of day, nice warm snack, hearty protein. School lunch challenge accepted.